Hey friends, it's another episode of the School Transportation Nation podcast. Welcome. I'm Tony Corpin, publisher of School Transportation News. This episode is brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. Today's tech tip is brought to you by Zonar, and the safety tip is brought to you by Safety Vision.
Hello, Nation. I'm Ryan Gray, Editor-in-Chief of School Transportation News, and I want to wish a very happy birthday to someone who's very near and dear to us, Taylor Hannon, STN's Associate Editor. Taylor, happy birthday. It's great to have you back.
Hear the applause, right? Where is it?
Applause track. Happy birthday. I think you're 16 now? No.
Oh, funny. Hey, everyone. I'm back. It's great to be here, especially on my birthday. I get to give up a little bit of my day and hang out with you guys. I'm the associate editor here at STN, and I'm also super excited to be interviewing Maurice Toole, the Central Terminal Manager for Cherry Creek School District in Colorado. So stay tuned for that.
Well, Taylor, great to have you back. Ryan, glad to have you on here too. Well, sort of. No, I'm kidding.
Hey.
Hey, Ryan, he's a popular guy. He was on the radio. I think notoriety on the podcast has elevated you. People are calling you, asking for interviews. Ryan, you want to tell us, how did that come about?
So WILK News Radio in Pennsylvania reached out and wanted to talk about, of course, COVID-19 and specifically how it's affecting school bus drivers and any guidance that they might have. And as we know, going through this whole pandemic, guidance is a very loaded word, right? There is no easy button for anything, no matter how much people want one. There just are very few answers to a myriad number of questions. But WILK reached out. They had me on for nearly about a half hour asking me various questions about the school bus driver shortage, private contractors not getting paid. Talked a lot about barriers, physical barriers in buses. Some of what the radio host noted he thought was very interesting, that NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, was essentially okaying the use of barriers when we've had the school bus industry and some states come out dead set against it, saying it's going to put school buses out of compliance with several federal motor vehicle safety standards. And I explained that, first of all, when NHTSA made that announcement, it does not carry the weight of law. So it's essentially their review of a couple of photos that the Illinois Department of Transportation sent them. So we had an article on this and we've written some more. Taylor has covered a lot on this issue.
Yeah. And I was in a student transportation aligned for return to school task force, so STARTS, and they kind of discussed the new equipment in a recent webinar. And they talked about the concerns that some, student transporters are having, and they've also expressed on our STN Facebook page about the ventilation of these barriers, these soft shields that are being installed behind the driver. And so they kind of talked about the concerns, and then I was able to follow up with the companies and talk about, hey, is there ventilation in these things? Like, are school bus drivers sitting in this essentially sauna, right? And they were made with the idea of airflow in mind. So they're not saunas. There is spaces at the top and the bottom for air to travel. But there's an article up at stnonline.com that kind of goes into the details of the concerns and then what the manufacturers of the barriers have to say about that.
Really, I could tell that there's a lot of school bus drivers that are still feeling the pain from this thing. We've talked the last couple of weeks about the economy and some of the mixed messages that we're seeing. I term it schizophrenia a bit in looking at how well the stock market is doing, but yet the high unemployment, and granted unemployment has gotten better, and we've talked about that. I was actually listening to an Apple podcast earlier this week, and they were pointing out that the stock market is not an indicator of how well the economy is doing. It's really looking at futures, right? It's looking at what the economy will be doing in the future, what companies will be selling and money they'll be making in the future. So it just reminded me that there's a lot of people out there hurting, not knowing where their next paycheck's going to come from, not knowing if they want to go back to school and keep driving kids. Noted also an article that was mentioning some teachers are trying to be classified as essential workers. The White House trying to make some of those classifications. Really, again, they're trying to get kids back in school, and there's a myriad of reasons why that's important. But it comes back to the fear and anxiety of teachers. Would such an order, if you can even call it that, extend to school bus drivers? Not very clear on that right now. It just still, as we're now heading into the fall months and school has started up everywhere, it's just, a lot of confusion still.
Yeah, Ryan, speaking of schools starting back up, we've definitely got some different responses. We sent out a survey last week to our 30,000 readers. We got 1,138 responses about what people are doing out there in terms of school startups. So in-person, in-classroom education was 15.8%, 180 respondents. Hybrid model of mixed remote in-person learning, 40.7%, 463 respondents. Remote learning only 32.9%, which was 374 respondents. And parental option was 10.6, 121. So interesting mix out there. A lot of hybrid, actually more than I would have thought.
Exactly. Yeah. And really what it comes down to is for those schools, however they're going back, we know that most student transporters, whether they're physically driving buses or not, they are going back to work. And what is the big driver for them getting operations back and going? Technology. And it's hard to believe, but here as we get close to September, we're less than a month away from our first virtual event, the Virtual Bus Technology Summit. That's September 21st to the 24th. Developing that, our team has been hard at work. We're launching that. We should have some information up very soon, so check our websites, subscribe to School Transportation News e-news, and you'll get the latest information on that. We have a website, bustechsummit.com. We're going to have a main stage. We're going to have breakout rooms, chat rooms. We're at a virtual trade show, product presentations, product demos. It's this new reality, right, Tony? So much of the in-person events has just gone by the wayside. We've seen essentially every, I think, industry conference, state association, and certainly on the national level get postponed or straight out canceled. We were hoping to have some in-person events this fall, but it's really looking like with the spikes nationwide, there are some good indicators out there. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said last week that actually the southern states seem to be getting a better handle the last couple of weeks on their cases. But meanwhile, the Midwest is starting to explode again. So, it seems that we're going to be locked down in some way, shape, or form for a while. So we're bringing the free Virtual Bus Technology Summit to everyone next month. So check that out. Should be a great time.
Yeah, Ryan. Ryan hit on it. It's free. So there definitely won't be any reason you should miss it. And really going virtual has advantages, right? There are some advantages over live events. It's never going to be the same exactly, right? You're not going to be able to sit down with a friend and have a drink, or, you may not have as rich of an experience in a one-on-one basis, but virtual has a lot of advantages. And one of those major advantages that I see is accessibility, right? If you're at your home, you're at your office, you don't have to fly anywhere, you don't have to spend any money, you just show up and be present. And I think people are hungry for virtual training opportunities. And, we've brought together kind of a who's who of technology partners. We've got a big partner, Zonar, who's our title sponsor. Their president and CEO, Ian McCurlick, is going to be doing a tech talk. Antonio Civitella was on last week. He's going to be doing a tech talk. We've got some other experts, Jim Harris Morris, who's a disruption expert. He was our keynote at the previous STN Expo, and he was fabulous. Lots of people loved him. And then we have Matthew Doss, who's a technology attorney, jumping on too. So really a dense amount of smart people that we're offering just great training to our industry. So please go on bustechsummit.com, sign up, register today. Really great opportunity for you guys to capture some good information for your team. Speaking of Zonar, they're a leader in smart fleet management and also the sponsor of today's tech tip. Reopening for in-person classes can be too close for comfort, but contact tracing lets you identify who's at risk if someone tests positive. Zonar's Z-Pass is self-managed, touchless solution that supports contact tracing. Each person scans their card as they enter and exit, and Z-Pass captures the date and time of that scan. No contact necessary. If you need to, you'll quickly know who to notify so you can avoid an outbreak. Learn more at zonarsystems.com/protect. That's zonarsystems.com/protect. All right, Taylor, I think you might have an update on some adverse weather for us. You want to give us a little update on that?
Yes, you did kind of hit it on the nose, Tony. There is something going on with Mother Nature. I mean, we got storms in the Midwest, right? We got fires in the West, and I think a tropical storm or hurricane is kind of approaching Texas. I was talking to some people who were on the ground during the Iowa derecho, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this type of storm before, but it's essentially like a high-speed straight storm that kind of just went through the middle of Iowa.
The derecho is different than a tornado. Tornado, of course, a twisted vortex wind. So we saw a lot of, when this first happened, a lot of posts about this on Facebook. And wow, what devastation. And it wasn't just Iowa. It went on into Illinois, and some folks up there and even in Illinois and Iowa as well, they still don't have power to this day. So there's very spotty internet. So just talk about complicating school startup amid COVID-19 when you think things couldn't get any worse. Then this storm happens. As Taylor, you mentioned, we have this raging wildfire in the Bay Area of California, the East Bay, which is, I saw a satellite imagery from NASA the other day showing the plume of smoke spreading out across the western U.S. and the Rockies, and very high temperatures as well. So it's almost kind of like a powder keg that is seemingly going to erupt here amid all of this COVID-19 madness. So really crazy. Stay safe out there. Hopefully in your neck of the woods, wherever that may be, you are safe and you're not having any further ill effects on school startup. But certainly, if you want to talk about how Mother Nature is affecting your operations, reach out to us. You can email me at ryan@stnonline.com.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I know social media has tons of pictures that show vivid images of memories past of extreme weather events. I'm friends with Mr. Kane Smith on Facebook. He's the director of transportation down at Cypress Fairbanks and previous guest on our podcast. And he's got numerous posts talking about this tropical depression and what it could turn into. And I think they're preparing for the worst. Definitely don't want to sit back when something like this is coming, very much like a Godzilla kind of weather event that you got to watch out just in case. So it's all about prepping for safety. And our safety tip this week is brought to you by Safety Vision. As temperature checks on buses are becoming a reality, it's time to get educated on your options. Avoid devices with facial recognition and data collection, as privacy is a number one concern for students and faculty. Safety Vision's thermometer does not store or collect any private data and is ready to be implemented in your fleet today. To learn more about your market options and what to avoid, contact Safety Vision at 1-800-880-8855 or email schoolbussales@safetyvision.com or go to safetyvision.com for more information.
Back on the Washington, D.C. front, Congress remains out on recess, but work apparently is going on in the background on this next coronavirus relief package, and it's desperately needed, folks. Senate Bill 178 was introduced last week. It aims to do many things here. It looks to up the Republican-led HEALS Act, the federal weekly unemployment insurance supplement, from $200 to $300 until December 27th. So again, we've been talking about the effect of extended unemployment insurance on top of what folks were already receiving each week. And in some places, school bus drivers making more in unemployment than they were driving the school bus, and what that does to this ongoing driver shortage that's been exacerbated by all the fear and anxiety of returning to school. Speaking of protecting schools, Senate Bill 178 would look to funnel $100 billion to schools to fight all the costs associated with COVID-19 and the new technology needed. It would add more money to the payroll protection package, including a second loan for some small businesses. $10 billion for the United States Postal Service. That's been in the news. The Democrats still want $25 billion. It also includes elements of the Democrat HEALS Act and a continuing resolution to fund the government past September 30th. But one of the things that was not included in this, there's no $1,200 stimulus payment for individuals.
These components are all very interesting, but I feel like it's all just pie in the sky, right? Like there's just so much political back and forth. Obviously, the DNC took place and, they've got other ideas on what kind of talking points and initiatives they want to institute. So where do the two political parties meet in the middle on such a package that's going to help the American people and the businesses? But I think what's tough out there is I see a lot of small businesses folding because maybe they got that initial help, but that money's kind of drying up. Now what? Right? What do you do? And where's the industry and the market going to go? And as you mentioned kind of at the top, the stock market is not representative of the economy. It feels real good, I guess, if you're invested, but if you're not, where do you land? How do you feel as an individual? So those are scary things, I think, just in the world that I see. And I would love to see a package come through that helps everyone. But I don't know. It just feels so distant with all the political jockeying going on right now.
Yeah, and the Republican National Convention is coming up. You mentioned the DNC, the Democrat National Convention was last week. Joe Biden became the official Democratic candidate for president, along with his vice presidential selection, Kamala Harris. We'll see what the Trump administration says next, especially with the Republican National Convention. Doesn't give you a lot of hope that there's going to be much meeting in the middle because we haven't seen much. And we, always hoping that a national or global crisis like COVID-19 brings us together. We saw at least what happened temporarily after 9/11. It just, it's tough. Being only a few months away from the presidential election, this election year is really seemingly going to brought out the worst in folks. So hoping we can all come together. And not meaning to sound trite or anything, but it's definitely gives you pause, and we got to remember that we're all Americans and we're all in the same game here. So.
Yeah, I mean, in the current pandemic climate, school transportation needs are inevitably changing very quickly, and you need the power of multiple routing scenarios and browser-based tools. You need accurate real-time reporting with custom layouts. You need artificial intelligence optimization. You need an automated intelligence system to help you become faster, safer, and smarter in adjusting to these ever-changing school landscape. Covered here on the podcast. Right? The fact is you need to be running super fast, and that's where Route Finder Plus comes in. You don't want to be marginal, incremental change to routing. Who wants faster horse when you can get a fast sports car? Swap incremental for transformational with TransFinder. Plus is your key to delivering accuracy, speed, and savings to your operation. Plus is the most powerful, easy-to-use routing solution on the market today. Plus features include automation and optimization. Say no to incremental change. Make the transformational transition to TransFinder. Contact TransFinder today at getplus@transfinder.com. Let them know we sent you. So put STN Podcast in the subject line and you just might win a prize too. Don't go anywhere. Taylor Hannon will be interviewing Maurice Toole from Cherry Creek School District.
So I'm here with Maurice Toole. He's the Central Terminal Manager for Cherry Creek School District in Colorado. And Maurice actually sent me a picture, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and it was this beautiful rainbow over the bus yard. That had to have been a pretty sight to see, Maurice.
It absolutely was. Our recruiting and training person was here doing some extra work, just walked out on the deck and saw that picture and sent it to me and said, this has got to be a good sign for us going back into the school year. So we were pretty excited about that. And I thought I'd share it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Definitely, if you guys want to see the picture, it's at our Facebook at STN Mag or our Instagram at STN Magazine. Feel free to send over any images you guys as listeners have. It could end up on our social media or a featured image for an article. We're always looking what's going on in transportation operations, and sharing is caring. So send those pictures. But Cherry Creek actually started classes on Monday last week. So we're going to get a deep dive into how the district's first week went and any lessons or challenges that were learned along the way. So can you kind of start by providing a little background, Maurice, on your operations for this year? What learning style has your district decided on going with?
Well, as most districts probably have experienced, it was a roller coaster of trying to figure out which style we were going to use. So our district chose to use both methods, the hybrid as well as in person. The superintendent sent out a survey to better gauge the amount of resources that were going to be needed based on parent reply to who would need transportation. They shared that information with us, and it allowed us to be able to better assess our needs out there this week or last week, this week. The weeks are running together. I don't know. Just come to work and take the kids to school.
So how does that affect transportation? How many students are you transporting this year?
Well, last year we transported approximately 22,000 students. This year we anticipate about 14,500. It's down about 34% from last year. And one of the things that the way we've done this to begin incorporating students back into the school is we have what we're calling a phase-in model, where students are separated into two groups, and we refer to those as cohorts. And then they're separated by last names, A through K and L through Z. So almost like an A-B type schedule, and then we split those students in half. So elementary are going Monday through Friday. High school and middle school have an online day of Monday, and then Tuesday through Friday is the AABB cohort days.
Okay. So what does that leave? How many students a day are you looking at on a bus?
Well, we don't really know what the per day ratio is going to look like yet, just because there may be a lot more people with the last name that begin with K. There may be a lot more Smiths. So we don't know what that's going to look like yet as far as the per day, but we are poised and ready to start student counts, as everybody in transportation is aware of. That's the best way to gauge how many people we're transporting and what the needs are at those stops. So we are going to be doing our student counts starting Monday per stop to see what our student ridership looks like.
Okay, perfect. So kind of going off of that, what COVID-19 protocols have you guys implemented on the school bus?
Well, that's a huge one. Again, we started talking about this in April and May when we realized we weren't going to be coming back to school. So some of the things that we've done is all employees must wear a mask when on the bus. This means even if you're pre-tripping or post-tripping, if you're on the bus, you must wear a mask. The thought behind that is even though you're sanitizing the bus, you could potentially contaminate the bus with germs of your own. So we want to make sure that we keep that bus sanitized and ready to roll and pick up students. Para assistants that are on the bus are required to wear a mask as well. We give them the option to also wear an additional face shield because they're dealing with SPED students, and we all know that sometimes the SPED community, they have sensory issues and they may not be able to wear a mask as well. So we do have face shields for them. This extra barrier is important in case other students are not able to wear a mask. Employee also received a bottle of hand sanitizer, a face mask, and a cool CCSD, Cherry Creek School District, face gaiter that they could wear as well. We do disinfect our high-touch areas on the bus after each tier. So after your route on your AM, if you're in the bus loop or right before you get to your first student pickup for your next tier, the expectation and directive is to disinfect the bus with disinfectant, which we have on the bus. And we also use a hydrostatic sprayer multiple times a week on all of our buses in the fleet.
Wow. Okay. So it even sounds like you guys are allowing the hand sanitizer on board then.
Yes. So what we did was we gave each individual a small pocket hand sanitizer to utilize on the bus for their own personal use. We don't have one out so kids could get to it or anything like that. Just on their own personal use. So they could keep it in their pocket, or a driver could keep it in their compartment or in a pouch behind the seat in case they need to disinfect their hands.
Okay. And, what about barriers? Have you guys looked at installing any plexiglass or soft shield barriers?
No, ma'am, not on the bus. Right now, Colorado Department of Education is not supporting us installing any type of barriers on the bus, for compartmentalization, emergency evacuation, those type of things. But we do have barriers. We have put barriers between desks in our offices, as well as between computers in the computer room and the lounges and things like that, but not on the bus. We're not doing barriers. But one additional thing that we are doing is buses are required to roll down multiple windows on the bus. So even if you have a bus with air conditioning on it, the expectation, again, the directive is that you roll those windows down. Those windows have to be down and the vents open to keep that air circulating. We're trying to follow all of the CDC guidelines. You can always do more. You just can't do less.
Right. But it's cold in Colorado, isn't it? Like, what's going to happen when the weather drops?
Well, for me, being a transplant, as they call them here in Colorado, actually is very dry and it is very hot. So we've been in the 90s, mid to upper 90s for a good 3 weeks now. And our rainfall is probably around 2 to 3 inches. And anyone who's watching the news out there, you can see where we have, last I checked, we had 4 wildfires burning, which are about 150 to 200 miles from here. And I actually had some of that soot in my yard at my house. So it's been very bad on the eyes. So in all actuality, wearing a mask is a good thing.
Hey, there you go. It serves two purposes, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, wait. So I know you're about ready to jump on a route after this, but can you kind of speak a little bit on the driver shortage? Are you guys experiencing that? Did you lose any drivers due to fear?
Well, last year, so I've been here at Cherry Creek now just over a year, and last year we had a lot of drivers who left. But since then, we've done a great job of getting more drivers back with the organization and retaining them. So we have lost 4 drivers alone, transportation-wide, to the fear of COVID. One of those actually retired altogether. However, we have hired 22 drivers since June 1st. So that says we're up 18. We have 3 people in class right now who will be finishing soon. So for my terminal particularly, to only have 3 holes right now in my terminal, I'm ecstatic. I could be happier, but I'm very happy right now that I can sit here and do this podcast with you and not have to do it from a cell phone sitting in a bus loop.
Yeah, that's great news. So with all that in mind, can we kind of wrap it up? How did this week go for you in terms of transportation and school startup?
I believe this week went very well with the phase-in model that the district has utilized. It gave us an opportunity, I say us as a team, transportation, the opportunity to get out, practice those routes. A lot of new people not knowing the area, very few people getting lost, turned around. So I would say for us as a transportation department, it's been very, very good. It's been a very smooth transition. The one thing I would share with other transportation officials who are preparing for school right now is to engage their safety and training departments. We have had 2 accidents, 2 very minor accidents, but they both were due to tail swing. So our drivers aren't used to being out of the seat for, 7 months. So I really think it's imperative that we get safety and training departments involved as we bring our drivers and our personnel and get our fleet back on the road.
Yeah, that's a good point. Kind of jumping off of that, besides the safety and training aspect, were there any lessons learned or some new challenges that arose that you didn't prepare or think about when planning?
Well, what we did learn is that our routing department can work miracles. They didn't think they could, but they can. They worked through several iterations of route planning. Some of them were right up through till earlier this afternoon. We've embraced the fact that change is the new norm. And that's just the way it is. It was challenging keeping up with the multiple changes that were coming just because we wanted to be sure, being one of few states that actually are doing in-school learning, we wanted to make sure that we didn't miss the target. So our people handled all these challenges like true professionals. And I couldn't be happier than I am with what everybody is doing right now.
What kind of last advice would you give transportation officials right now who are preparing for school startup?
I think the difficult part is going to be helping your people understand that they've got to embrace change. Like I said, change is the new norm. No one could have predicted where we are right now as a civilization. So it's going to be very important that we do things to keep morale high and keep communicating with our people as far as expectations, addressing those concerns. Myself and anyone else, if someone tells you, hey, I need to come work in your house, and they tell you in advance so you can prepare, you're okay with that. But someone shows up at your door and, hey, I need to work in your house right now. It's a little like, wait a minute, dude, you could have given me some advance notice. So for me, it's been very important to continue my communication. Those people who don't use email, now's a great time for them to begin to embrace the use of email. And a lot of our people have done that. And we're beginning to see that our older generation is embracing the use of email and technology.
All right, you did it. You brought up the word technology. So how has that played a role?
Slowly but surely, I'm sure we're not the only district that has been affected by budget cuts. So we do have some technology ideas on the horizon. But right now, we just want to get through trying to get our students to school so that they can get their education. Towards the end of last year, our students did have the opportunity. Our district handed out technology to students. So that was great. So those students who didn't have access to a computer were given access to a computer and allowed to utilize it moving into the online mode of learning if they didn't have one this year. So that's where we are right now. I'm sure there'll be more things on the horizon for Cherry Creek. Again, technology is the direction right now, and I'm sure we'll be on board just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, technology has definitely been a big conversation lately. Well, that's all I got for you, Maurice. I want to thank you so much for taking time to speak with us and kind of shed some light into your operations. You know, all of us at STN wish you the best for this next school year, and we hope everything goes well.
I really appreciate it. And if I could just say thank you to you guys for everything that you're doing. I really appreciate you being out there, and I email you a lot and share things with you frequently. So I appreciate what STN is doing and how you guys are getting the message out and continuing to share information with the transportation community. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Special thanks to my co-hosts, Mr. Ryan Gray and Taylor Hannon. Also, special thanks to Maurice from Cherry Creek for joining us today's episode. Shout out to our sponsors, TransFinder, Zonar, and Safety Vision. Thank you, School Transportation Nation, for listening today. Visit stnpodcast.com to hear all our previous episodes. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We love those. Email us at info@stnmedia.com to tell us what topics you'd like us to discuss on the podcast. Stop by our site as well, stnonline.com, for the latest news, perspectives on school bus, the coronavirus, and school startup. We'll see you next time.